Hello there. Welcome in to a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that free to use, free to download app is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. I certainly do appreciate your patronage. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts, especially on what I'm starting the show by talking about. 719-247-1313 is the text and the phone line if you want to call or text it in. You can also tweet at me. I am at Gingerly Tweets. Coming up in hour number 2, just want to alert you on a guest. We will look at Game 6, Avs and Stars, through the Dallas perspective. When Gavin Spittle joins me, he covers the team down in Dallas, so he will join me in hour number 2. But the rest of the time, it's ours. So let's make the most of it, shall we? I know we've settled on the Blue Arrow, like that's if Jamal Murray is going to be have a nickname, that's what it's going to be. But I really think that paradox would fit him. Maybe that doesn't sound as cool. It sounds like kind of a, DuckTales villain or something like that. But that's what Jamal Murray continues to be. He's the NBA's paradox. He contradicts himself. What Jamal Murray is in the regular season, I don't want to say is a dime a dozen, but he averages for his career 18 points a game during the regular season. Okay? There are currently in the NBA nearly 40 players that average 18 or more points a game for their career. Literally, there's one on every single team in the NBA. The regular season of Jamal Murray exists on every NBA roster. But what he becomes in the playoffs is where the contradiction happens. Because during the regular season, it's good, right? He's a good NBA player. What he becomes on the stage that he had last night, Game 5 of the first round of the NBA playoffs, he becomes, it's like watching, like a Bruce Springsteen or something in a concert. It's like watching a Denzel Washington movie, like you're just enthralled. You can't take your eyes off of it. And I know that we appreciate and are entertained by what Nikola Jokic does, but I'll tell you, if I had to choose one just for entertainment value alone, I'm taking a game like that from Jamal Murray 10 times out of 10 over any game Nikola Jokic puts up. I'm serious. Because it's just, and I think what plays into it is why he's such a paradox. It's because we don't see this coming. If Luka tonight for the Los Angeles Lakers in a massive game for their season puts up 43 points, it will be celebrated, but it will not capture the imagination the way that Jamal Murray's game did last night. And that's a part of it. Nobody, and Brian Anderson mentioned it numerous times on the TNT broadcast last night, there is not a player in NBA history that from a scoring perspective raises his level more than Jamal Murray, which speaks to how prolific he is in the playoffs, but it also speaks to what he is during the regular season. And that's, if you're a Nuggets fan, kind of part of the frustration, because you watch a game like last night and you say, okay, he doesn't have to do that every night during the regular season, but where is that guy? Twice in an 82-game season, we saw performances like that from Jamal Murray. Twice this season. That's it. And they were the most random games ever. He did that against, I think he had 55 against Portland in February, and he had like 42 against Dallas one night. They'll just pop up rarely, but they just kind of come out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, it's a Jamal Murray game. That's part of what makes last night, I guess, in the bigger picture, frustrating, that Jamal Murray doesn't settle into perhaps a higher level of play consistently. But it also is what makes a night like last night so unbelievably awesome. Like, it's just the best thing when he is scoring like he was last night. And I said it on the show yesterday. The Nuggets needed him. Playoff Jamal. They needed that first and foremost above anything else. Now, we'll talk about later, they got about everything else in order to beat the Los Angeles Clippers. But it was immediate. Like, you could tell immediately in the first quarter, you're like, oh, this could be one of those games for Jamal Murray. And the thing about playoff Jamal, yes, that was his sixth 40-point or more playoff performance. And by the way, the closest comparison you make in today's NBA is Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler has played about twice as many playoff games as Jamal Murray has. And he has about 2 more 40-point games than Jamal does. So, yes, that's the closest comparison. But consider the sample size for Jamal Murray as opposed to Jimmy Butler. But it's not just the sheer volume. It's the magnitude of some of the shots that he hits. There are at least 4 or 5 shots in that game that were extremely consequential at the time. They were huge baskets. You know, I wrote down a few of them. First quarter, he had a couple of buckets to really get Denver off to a good start. That was significant. Third quarter, Clippers closed to within 8. The very next trip down the floor, Murray hits a 3. Gets it back to double digits. Twice in the fourth quarter, Clippers started threatening and made you a little uncomfortable, didn't they? What happened immediately after? Jamal Murray hit a shot. And it's not, look, it's not like he takes a ton of shots. So you could say, well, of course, over the course of the game, when he shoots as much as he does, he's bound to hit a few that are extremely consequential. Look at his numbers. He didn't take that many shots. He took 1 free throw. He took 1 free throw the entire night, and it was a technical. But it's not just the quantity, it's the quality as well that goes into one of those signature playoff Jamal type performances like we saw last night. And it makes no sense. When his career is over, what are you going to say about Jamal Murray? Like, you can't, there's so many guys that do what Jamal Murray does in the playoffs. There are a lot of players that score a lot in the playoffs. Steph, LeBron, Luka, like the list goes on. But again, those guys aren't a revelation every time it happens the way it is with Jamal Murray. And we've seen when he gets going like that, he can match any one of those guys shot for shot. Any one of them. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's one of the most confounding things in today's NBA is Jamal Murray. Just that's it, Jamal Murray. It contradicts itself. It shocks you when it happens, but it's absolutely brilliant. And you just try to figure out like what it is. Like what is it? What is the secret sauce here? What is it that he digs down deep and grabs in order to do this? And he's asked a question similar to that last night, and then this is the answer that he gives.
Just glad we got to win, man, to be honest with you. You know, shots are going to miss, they're going to make. I'm still going to play my game. I'm still going to be aggressive. You know, I'm still going to shoot the shots that I shoot. But like I said, it was a big team win.
Completely unsatisfying answer. Because it's like, but why do they go in, Jamal? Why do they go in? Okay, yeah, I don't see a completely different player in terms of shot selection or style of play in the regular season, but the shots don't go in at the same frequency. The shots don't always come in the most important moments of the game. See if David Adelman has a better answer to the experience that is playoff Jamal Murray.
When it's flowing like that, you know, it's the guy that's won us so many playoff games in the past. And when he's complimentary with Nikola, it's great, but it sure is nice to have these nights where it's his show. And, you know, we needed it tonight in a big game. So, yeah, it was fun to watch, man. I'm sure for the fans, it was incredible.
Great answer. Because, yes, he and Nikola Jokic together, that two-man game, when it is working, there's not a combination in the league better than that. But there's something about these games where, like David Adelman said, it's his show. And last night was Jamal Murray's show. Yes, a lot of other stuff went right, and we'll talk about it. But it's as captivating as any player in the NBA when Jamal Murray's going like that. And it's amazing, but at the same time, I keep going back to it. It's a little bit frustrating at times because you're like, if he just splits the difference between what he was last night and what he is during the regular season on the whole, like we're talking about a perennial all-star. And it just and maybe that's what it is. It's a paradox. It makes no sense, but if Jamal Murray was closer to what he was last night during the regular season, then nights like last night would not be as special. He can only summon this during the playoffs, and even then, it's not like we get a performance like last night every game of the playoffs. And if he did it more, I suppose it would lose some of its impact. But it's a sight to behold. And like David Adelman said, the Nuggets needed it. And it reminds you that when Jamal Murray is doing what he's capable of, with Nikola Jokic, this basketball team is capable of just about anything. The question is, how much can you get that going forward in this series, but also moving forward in the postseason? Take your reaction to another all-timer by playoff Jamal, 719-24-7-1313. As I said, it wasn't just Jamal Murray. He was the biggest story by far, but there were contributions all over the place for the Denver Nuggets as they pick up a massive win in Game 5, now push the Clippers to the brink of elimination. And once again, our roller coaster ride continues. One day we converge, and it's, the Avs, anything is possible, and the Nuggets, we're just waiting for the season to be over, and the very next day it completely flips. These two first-round series have been just wild. Just been a wild start to the playoffs for both of these teams. 719-24-7-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Coming up, this summer, the 2025 Pro Football Camp. 20 years now that this has been going on. It will happen June 23rd through the 25th at John Venecia Park here in Colorado Springs. But there's so much more to it and so much more being added this year. And joining me now is somebody who will be a part of, I think, pretty much everything that's going on around Pro Football Camp. She is a linebacker for Denver Rush. She is Bria Quintana. Bria, good to have you on. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, it is my pleasure. So this is your first year associated with Pro Football Camp, yes?
I've actually volunteered in the past, probably the past 3 years.
Oh, okay. So you've been volunteering, and were you one of the ones that brought up the idea about the girls' flag football camp?
I am, yes, yes.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because obviously now flag football is growing exponentially in popularity. We're going to get it in the Los Angeles Olympics, and you and some of your teammates and stuff decided, like, hey, you should try to replicate what you do with Pro Football Camp with this. Tell us about what's going on, and that's June 9th, right? The girls flag football camp.
Yeah, definitely. So we are having our first girls pro flag football camp. It's June 9th through the 12th. The whole reason why I wanted to have this camp was because now the flag football is being sanctioned in the high schools.
Mm-hmm.
And so we want to allow the girls to have, the resources and everything to get that skill, their skills developed. So that's kind of why behind this camp. It is June 9th through the 12th, and it's from 8 a.m. to 11:30 a.m.
And what's really cool about it too is if you put your daughter or niece into the flag football camp, you can also later on, you could do both, right? Because a lot of the age groups overlap. So you can get your daughter or your niece or your neighbor, whoever it is, even more training from some of the people that do it at the highest of levels, including Bria. Let me ask you, the growth of football for women. Obviously, you don't play flag football, you play tackle football for Denver Rush. Just being a veteran in that league like you are, what has this last few years been like with the growth of football on the women's side of things?
Oh man, it has grown tremendously. Just from the arena tackle football, it's now expanded, like I said, into the high school level,
Mm-hmm.
as well as like USA flag football. It's pretty much all over the world, including they are at some of the universities now. So this sport is definitely growing for these young girls.
Yeah, it's awesome. Bria Quintana joining me. She's a linebacker for Denver Rush and is going to be one of the coaches at not only the pro football camp on June 23rd through the 25th, but as we mentioned, the first annual girls pro flag football camp, June 9th through the 12th. I want to ask you, what about your season? Tell us a little bit about Denver Rush while I have you on. I might as well ask you about that because I'm curious.
Yeah, so Denver Rush, we are based out of Denver, Colorado. So it is a tackle football arena. It is 7-on-7, so it's pretty similar to flag. However, there's just no tackling involved there.
Mm-hmm.
So that season usually starts over the summer. So that one actually kicks off summer of 2026.
Okay.
So, yep, we're getting all prepared for that. There's going to be, some amazing talent out there. So we are definitely excited for that.
Well, we'll keep tabs and maybe have you back on as we ramp up to the the launch there next summer. In the meantime, Bria, thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll see you when you're here in Colorado Springs in June. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. That's Bria Quintana. She is a linebacker for Denver Rush, one of the many coaches. So, yeah, Bria, Matt Henningsen of the Denver Broncos is going to be there. There's a whole slew of football players that have played at the highest of levels, college, pro, that are going to be coaching your kids, which is an experience that you're not going to get in a lot of places, and also not for nothing, probably at a more affordable price than you're going to get with. And I think that's a big part of pro football camp and what Craig and Teddy Doman have been doing. They want to keep it affordable so your kids can have this great experience, but not break the bank necessarily to do it. So again, the full event list, and there's so much going on. There will be the Meet the Pros where you can meet Bria and some of the other coaches on June 8th. Then June 9th through the 12th, it will be the girls pro flag football camp. And then it will be one thing I didn't mention with Bria, but I want to mention here, June 12th, there will be the first annual Rocky Mountain flag football tournament. And then Meet the Pros again at Back East Bar and Grill on the 22nd, leading into pro football camp in 2025. Just go look up pro football camp and you get a whole range of all the events, and you won't have to keep it all in your head at once. So very cool thing. Again, 20 years, and now they're adding all these other things that they'll probably continue on for at least 20 years. So that was Bria Quintana, linebacker for Denver Rush. I was elsewhere in the NBA last night. Giannis maybe saw his Bucks career come to an end. And it was the most, I mean, you thought the Jamal Murray game last night was kind of wild. If you caught any of that Pacers-Bucks game, especially the end of it, Bucks looked to be extending the series. They're up by 7 with less than a minute to go. And then fast forward to the end, and they're done. And reports today from Shams Charania that Giannis is going to meet with the Bucks about his future and the future of the team. And then there was the whole thing, too, with Tyrese Halliburton's dad confronted Giannis on the court. It was just a wild scene, and Halliburton's dad was lucky that Giannis didn't kill him. I mean, one punch from Giannis, and that dude would have been out. Remember, like, Shaq and Brad Miller? Remember when Shaq tried to swing at Brad Miller, and Brad Miller at the last second turned his head? Like, could you imagine what would have happened? And that's not Giannis's fault. He was on the court, and Halliburton's dad gets in his face. It was wild. And credit to Tyrese Halliburton, after the game at the podium, he's like, I talked to my dad. That's not okay. So it's good that he talked to his dad, and good that he immediately took a chance to apologize to Giannis and say that that was unacceptable. But then it was just a completely wild scene. But the story moving forward is going to be what happens with Giannis. And I do think that from a basketball perspective, you just had Damian Lillard lost for the rest of these playoffs, but he's going to miss the vast majority of next season, if not all of it. And his contract's about done in Milwaukee. I mean, this feels like you're not going to have Lillard next year. Giannis's contract is coming up in a couple of years. Forget what Giannis wants. The Bucks honestly should look at this as, we have this chance right now to reset our franchise. And the only way we're going to be able to do that in an effective way is by trading Giannis. And there are a lot of Nuggets fans that are certainly clamoring for Jokic and Giannis to link up. And I think that there's kind of an emotional aspect of this, because I think a lot of Nuggets fans rightly see a dystopian future that in which Nikola Jokic is in Giannis's position. Right? Think how far the Bucks have fallen since they won their title. And the Bucks have tried. Give them credit. I mean, they didn't sit on their hands like the Nuggets have done the last couple of years. Like, they went out and swung a huge deal to bring in Damian Lillard. Like, the Bucks didn't just hope that things would work out. They tried to make a significant move to shake it up, to change things up, to try and rekindle what they had. They moved through multiple coaches. Like, they acted with urgency, but it didn't work. It didn't work. And now Damian Lillard's career as a Milwaukee Buck is probably over. And who knows what Damian Lillard's going to be if he comes back for whatever team he ends up playing for. So I think there's, and I've thought about this too, not only the ghost of NBA season future with Nikola Jokic and how he can't now get out of the first round because he's got teammates that are injured, or there's a lack of talent around him. And meanwhile, Nikola Jokic keeps doing his thing because Giannis hasn't missed a step. He was phenomenal in this series with Indiana, and his talents are just being wasted. So I think it would make a lot of basketball sense for Milwaukee to move on. However, we have to be realistic about this. There is no way, unless Giannis is so dead set on having to go to Denver, right? Unless he holds the Milwaukee Bucks ransom and says, I got to go to Denver, there is no way that the Nuggets can swing a trade for Giannis. If Giannis and the Bucks front office meet and agree that it's probably time to go their separate ways, Giannis's, I think, one request would be, hey, send me somewhere where I have a chance to win. Denver would qualify as that, but then the flip side is that Milwaukee is going to say, we got to get as close to equal value as we can. And I can't come up with a trade with the Denver Nuggets that would be, I think, palatable for Milwaukee. Giannis is going to be worth multiple young and up-and-coming players, multiple first-round picks. We get so focused on Shea and Nikola Jokic. You know who the third finalist is for MVP? It's Giannis. So he's going to fetch a trade package maybe like we've never seen. And Denver can't nearly come up with the assets required. So Giannis, you know what Giannis is to the Denver Nuggets? He's the same thing that Sidney Crosby is to Avalanche fans. Like this, you kind of understand why it would make sense. Like in a vacuum, Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon would be amazing, right? This Shattuck St. Mary's connection, they're, Nathan McKinnon and Sidney Crosby are best friends. And going from Pittsburgh to the Colorado Avalanche would be a chance for Sidney Crosby to make multiple runs at Stanley Cup. It makes a lot of sense, and it would be an amazing story. But how long have Avs fans held on to that? Years. We've been talking about Sidney Crosby on the Avalanche for years, and it just never happens and never happens and never happens. I kind of feel like it would be the same thing with Giannis. It hasn't been talked about for as long, but there have been other moments, right? When Giannis made those comments to the New York Times a few years ago that kind of maybe passive aggressively got Milwaukee to kind of get off their rear end and make something happen to help Giannis. At that time, there was a lot of Giannis to Denver photoshops and talk going on. But it's a fantasy. It's a pipe dream. I get it. I get why. And I think that Giannis and Nikola Jokic together would be unbelievable. But it's not realistic. And it's not going to happen. Giannis is going to, I think, end up in probably one of three places. Houston, San Antonio, Orlando. Those are all up-and-coming teams. Those are all teams with a plethora of assets, with young players, especially watching Orlando last night and throughout this series with the Celtics. They have some roster redundancy. They could give up some players and still be able to put together a really strong basketball team. I think that's probably where he ends up going, is one of those places if Milwaukee ends up dealing him. I think if you're a Nuggets fan, and I don't know how you feel about Kevin Durant, but perhaps, and I guess Brooklyn's in there too, but you have to think like Houston has a chance to be, with OKC or with Minnesota. Like, if they find the right piece, they might be ready to compete for a championship as soon as next year. And then you go to like Orlando, easier path through the Eastern Conference, but probably a little bit further away in terms of like you saw in this series. Like Orlando's not even in the same galaxy as Boston. But they're more finished product than, say, San Antonio is. And San Antonio is, I think, more ready to win now than maybe Brooklyn is. So there are levels to this, but that's the group of teams that have the assets that would be required in order to get Giannis. But if, let's say, he goes to Houston, and I know here's another Western Conference team that has risen and now potentially surpassed the Denver Nuggets if they acquire Giannis. But that's one less suitor for Kevin Durant, who is not going to fetch the same package in a trade as Giannis will. I know it's a weird day to talk about it because we saw everything and everyone on the Denver Nuggets contribute to a massive Game 5 win. But however this thing goes for the Nuggets in the playoffs, and you arrive back at the conclusion that the Nuggets need to make a move, and maybe a move of significance, if Giannis does leave Milwaukee, chances are he goes to a place that was also interested in Kevin Durant, which potentially opens up a greater possibility that the Nuggets could get KD if they were so inclined. And if KD were to want to come to Denver, and I don't see why he wouldn't, maybe it's not his preferred destination, but what are Kevin Durant's goals at this time of his career, and how many places can he have a better time of it than Denver, playing with Nikola Jokic? So where the Nuggets fit into all of this, for down the road. But because the topic du jour from a national standpoint is what happens with Giannis now that the Bucks are eliminated, and the Nuggets have been a part of that conversation, that's why I bring it up now. Giannis isn't going to be a Denver Nugget. Just not. maybe if the Bucks just ship him out to wherever they feel like, and Giannis isn't happy there, wait 2 years and maybe he can sign as a free agent for the Nuggets. But in terms of this offseason, if the Bucks move on from Giannis, he's not coming to Denver. Best you can hope for is that it takes one, whether it's a Kevin Durant suitor or just a team that can be very active in the offseason in the West, off the table, like that's their move, then maybe it opens it up where the Nuggets can make a move for something else. 719-247-1313. We'll get back into the Nuggets and talk bigger picture because the biggest story was Jamal Murray, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a single Nugget that stepped foot on the floor last night that didn't contribute in a significant way to the Denver Nuggets winning Game 5. And the ultimate question, so are they getting out of this first round? And how far can this team go? Given what you saw last night. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Drive Time Sports continues next. Switchbacks FC back at Widener Field Saturday, 6 p.m., taking on Phoenix Rising for Galactic Night. First 3,000 fans through the gates will get a Switchbacks light-up sword, courtesy of Sunbelt Rentals. And then after the match, which is hopefully a win, a Galactic-themed fireworks display. Get your tickets now at switchbacksfc.com. Giannis and the Bucks eliminated from the playoffs last night. Could have moved to Denver, be next. I thought I explained pretty well why no, but I cannot argue with this logic from the 719. Hey, Luka was never going to be a Laker. Anything is possible. You know what the Luka trade has become? The Tom Brady of trades. Here's what I mean. Now, forevermore, and I guess Brock Purdy doesn't really help this, and I guess it just further perpetuates the idea that maybe don't lose hope. Never say never. But, let's see Brock Purdy when he's, well compensated and he doesn't have as many. I like Brock Purdy, but the Tom Brady thing. After Tom Brady became Tom Brady, every NFL fan base would look at their 6th and 7th round picks and go, what happened with Brady? Right? Which was a completely asinine thing. Like he was a 1 in a million shot thing that Tom Brady would become the greatest player of all time being drafted where he was. But now the Luka trade has become that as well, where you can't speak in absolutes. You could scoff at the idea that Giannis would end up a Denver Nugget. Or I don't know what the NHL equivalent. Let's just use although I really think that trading Sidney Crosby to the Avalanche in the past has made some sense for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They just have been unwilling to do it. Like it would be, I don't know, getting the Kachuk brothers together with McKinnon and Makar in Colorado. I don't know, figure out the one. But you can't speak in absolutes because Luka happened. Even with that being said, I'm still going to stick with my thought that Giannis will not end up a member of the Denver Nuggets because there are other desirable locales for Giannis that would have far more assets. And not to pick on the Denver Nuggets because this is a happy Nuggets day, but do the Nuggets, unless they get rid of Nikola Jokic, have anyone that's even as good as Anthony Davis? Playoff Jamal, but I don't think a team that wants to acquire Jamal Murray is just going to take his playoff performances into account. Like Anthony Davis has been a multiple-time All-Star. No one else on the Nuggets roster, save for Russell Westbrook, has been an All-Star, and Russell Westbrook is not an All-Star now currently with the Denver Nuggets. So if I have to push back against the Luka assertion, because it's fair. Right? The Luka trade happened, who knows, but I don't even think that the Nuggets have anything of value to offer Milwaukee that would be even on the same level as trading them Anthony Davis. And I'm a proponent of, hey, just get the player in and figure the rest out later, but it would be a little bit difficult to imagine if Jamal Murray, let's say, is the centerpiece of a deal for Milwaukee, which, by the way, they have Damian Lillard. So would they they would have redundancy, and then the Nuggets would have some redundancy because is Aaron Gordon staying? I think it's better. Well, I think one, you hope that Giannis stays in the East. That'd be good. Stay in the East. But perhaps no matter where he goes, that's one suitor for a Kevin Durant, who seems to be the other star player that might be available this summer, off the board for the Nuggets to potentially add him, if that's even what they want to do. Because it's a really tough thing to say that after what we saw last night. Because literally every single player on the Denver Nuggets last night contributed to that win. My big question that I will pose to you now and we'll revisit after the break, is it sustainable? Kind of think it has to be. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Wednesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. I will be joined by Gavin Spittle in the next segment. He is with 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, is the host of the Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast, giving us the Dallas perspective going into tomorrow night's Game 6 between the Avs and the Stars. Avs on the brink of elimination. Nuggets have pushed the Clippers to the brink of elimination with their 131-115 win last night at Ball Arena. And I tweeted this out early in the game, and it held true through 4 quarters. The Jamal Murray the Nuggets got last night, they've been waiting for him. They had not seen him in over a year. And I talked about yesterday on this show, yesterday being the 1-year anniversary of when he had a very good night against the Los Angeles Lakers to eliminate them from the postseason. But they've been waiting for that. And I guess there are levels to this. There's playoff Jamal, which is just Jamal Murray every game who ups his scoring average from the regular season. And then there's bubble Jamal when he goes like nuclear. And that's what you saw last night, right? And he did that against the Clippers in the bubble. So that's the version of Jamal Murray the Nuggets have been waiting for. The version of Russell Westbrook they got last night was the version they dreamt of. Russell Westbrook had 21 points last night. And David Adelman talked about this after the game. They just need a guy. They need a sixth man. There's a reason why there is something called a sixth man. There are certain connotations to it. There are certain responsibilities that fall on that player. They're more than just a bench player. They're the go-to bench player. They're the spark plug. They're all these kinds of things, and that's what Bruce Brown was. The Nuggets, when they won a title, really had 2 of them. It was Bruce Brown and Christian Brown. And then they went from 2 to 1 with Christian Brown. And then they brought in Russell Westbrook while elevating Christian Brown. And at times, you didn't even know that they had a sixth man. With some of the nights that Russell Westbrook had. But last night, he was every bit what the Nuggets needed their sixth man to be. But it was everyone last night. And people don't understand, people outside of Colorado don't understand. You understand this. The Nikola Jokic, that stat line is actually a wonderful Nikola Jokic stat line. You don't want Nikola Jokic to put up 30, 35, 40 points. Now, I do think if there's anybody that had an off night, it was probably Nikola Jokic. But a triple-double and the scoring numbers down, that's not a bad stat line. That more often than not is an indicator of just how well the rest of the Nuggets are playing, that he doesn't have to also wear the burden of being the best scorer on the floor for the Nuggets in addition to everything else that he does. You could look at last night and basically say, this is the best version of the Denver Nuggets. I can't imagine there will be another performance from the Denver Nuggets that will be quite as good as that last night. Michael Porter was a plus 31. Bad shoulder and all. Right? Russell Westbrook off the bench. Jamal Murray going bubble Jamal. Nikola Jokic with the triple-double. I mean, I don't know that the Nuggets are going to have a better performance than that. I think the question is, can they sustain it? Because in the last 2 games, we have seen some glimpses of the potential of this Nuggets team. Right? You saw it in the third quarter in Game 4, and you saw it for the vast majority of Game 5. But the minute that the Nuggets are anything less than superb, the Clippers get right back into the game. I mean, it happens that quick. And I don't know that it causes you to truly rethink what you thought about this series. It's not really changing what I think about this series. The Clippers still have all the advantages that I thought they had going in. They are the deeper team. They are the better defensive team. They are the better coach team. All those things exist, but when the Nuggets are playing like they did last night, it doesn't matter. Right? And we can talk about Porter and Russell Westbrook and everything, but really just take Jamal Murray. When Jamal Murray is playing like that with, Nikola Jokic doing his thing, that's what trumps nearly every advantage other NBA teams have over the Denver Nuggets. And that's why I said going in to the postseason, the biggest thing to me is Jamal Murray. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be available? And is he going to be playoff Jamal? Because when they get that, almost anything is possible. But then when they get Russell Westbrook and they get Michael Porter and they get Aaron Gordon and they get Christian Brown all working as well, then truly anything is possible. But the minute it's just slightly off, the Clippers are immediately back into it. You saw in the fourth quarter in both of these games. It's because the advantages that the Clippers have over the Nuggets, they still exist. So we might be able to get another. So, I mean, we've gotten it in 2 straight games. Why not a third? I don't put it out of the realm of possibility that the Denver Nuggets can play at this level again tomorrow night. But my fear is that they have to. And they have to do it for a sustained period of time in order to beat this Clippers team. And then looking forward, they might have to play at this level to beat Oklahoma City. And I don't know if they're capable of sustaining it for that long. And as good as the Clippers are, especially defensively, like Oklahoma City is going to be a step up in competition in every way, shape, and form. So I can get behind the idea that we're going to get at least one more performance like we've seen in Game 4 and Game 5 from the Denver Nuggets at some point in this series. I just don't know if we can get it for, one game in this series and at least and 4 in the next series and so far, into the future. That's what I don't know. But it's just if everything is not clicking on all cylinders, the Clippers immediately go on a run. Like the Nuggets A-, B+ effort has not been enough. And I think you've gotten that a B effort through most of this series, and yet the Clippers have looked a better team up until halftime of Game 4. So did the Nuggets flip a switch? Sure looks like it. Could they do it again? I wouldn't think that's a terrible bet. But I kind of feel like they have to. Or, and here's an alternative, they get it done on the defensive end, because that's kind of been a little bit lost in what happened last night, is that the Nuggets did, when the Clippers got back into it, yes, you immediately think of Jamal Murray hitting jumpers to keep the Clippers at bay, but there were also some big defensive plays in that game. James Harden struggled last night. Kawhi Leonard didn't look like the player that he was a couple of games ago. Like, the defense of the Denver Nuggets was there. It was just completely overshadowed by what Jamal Murray did, and to a lesser extent what Russell Westbrook did. And I think back to when they won the title, it was always that, almost that situational, that clutch defense that the Nuggets had. The Nuggets are just not a team that's going to be able to body you up for 4 quarters. They can't even hope to play defense for a full 4 quarters at the level that OKC or the Clippers play. But what they did in the playoffs when they won the title was, when they needed it, when they needed to summon that defensive effort, they could, for that key moment or moments. And I think it was there last night when the Clippers started to lean on them a little bit. When they started to come back, there were some big defensive plays, and there are a couple of block shots, couple of steals. So if the Nuggets are not going to play at that level offensively consistently from here on out, that clutch defense has got to pick up the slack. But I do also think it was a sign of progress, too, from the Denver Nuggets, whether you want to credit their offense or the defense or some combination of the two, that they didn't let that lead completely slip away like they did in Game 4. Right? You were having some flashbacks, certainly, in that fourth quarter. But I think they did do a good job of forcing the issue, whether it was offensively or defensively, to put a stop to it. And that's not what you got in Game 4, right? That huge lead they had completely evaporated. But as we've learned with the Avs and the Stars series, one game does not necessarily tell the future. Right? One game is not a precursor to the next. Game 6 is its own entity. And yes, the Nuggets can take some of the habits and some of the things that they did, from a scheme perspective or from an execution standpoint, and bring it into Game 6. They'll hope to do that. But we've seen in the Avs-Stars series how quickly it can flip back the other way. And the Avalanche in Game 4 looked like the Nuggets did in Game 5. And we saw what happened to the Avs right after that. So it does look like the Nuggets have found something, have gotten to another level, and that level will make them very difficult to beat in back-to-back games. But this series, it's not a foregone conclusion that the Nuggets are winning this series. The math is on their side. History is on their side. but they got to do it again. They got to do it again in game 6. And there's been a lot of talk about what happened with Minnesota last year. Right? This idea, and we'll get more into it through the rest of the show and certainly into tomorrow's show. This idea that this is why you get home court advantage so you can get game 7. No, it's not that you get home court advantage so you can just let game 6 go. It's that you have that backup plan, so to speak, that you can go home. And I think the Nuggets maybe didn't quite understand that last year against Minnesota. And it was just, well, they're going back to Denver for game 7, no big deal. That's why you get game 7 at home. And then we saw what happened. The Nuggets, as best they can, got to treat tomorrow night like game 7. Like they don't have the backstop of game 7 there. They don't have the net to catch them. Because they played that way last year, and game 7 didn't do them any good. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Nuggets' performance last night. Coming up next, I'll be joined by Gavin Spittle, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, hosts the Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast. We'll get the lowdown on how the Stars are feeling going into tomorrow night's Game 6 and what they found in Game 5 to push the Avs to the brink of elimination. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Tomorrow night, Avs and Stars. There is no tomorrow for the Colorado Avalanche. They must win to force a Game 7. Thankfully, as Jared Bednar continues to remind everyone, the Avs have been a much better home team than they have a road team in this series. Bigger picture, they still go back to Dallas if they want to win this series, but those are tomorrow's problems. Let's get a Dallas perspective on this series from the host of Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast and from 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Gavin Spittle is my guest. Gavin, good to talk to you, man. How are you?
Stick tap, my friend. Always great to speak to you.
So let me start with this. What did the Dallas Stars find in Game 5?
Well, it's interesting because what you're seeing from the Dallas Stars as far as the victories is something that they've kind of changed their game plan as opposed to the losses. And they can say they don't, but the Dallas Stars are not a physical team. So they have ramped up the physicality and trying to throw Colorado off their game. In the last game, what they discovered was the quick outs from their defensive zone. That Colorado forecheck is so impressive. And it was so impressive on that Saturday night when just straight from the beginning, they exhausted Dallas and took control of that game. I thought, within basically the whole game, but, when they scored that shorthanded goal, it was over. So Dallas did a good job as far as getting out of their zone in the last game, and I think that's crucial. The other thing is the neutral zone turnovers, which Colorado does a good job of capitalizing on with their speed and offensive skill. They limited that, and they stayed out of the penalty box for the most part. I know there were a lot of penalties in the game the other night, but as far as crucial time penalties, I felt as though Dallas did a good job staying out.
Were Stars fans getting a little bit nervous about what they signed up for the next 8 years with Mikko Rantanen before the other night?
I mean, they were. I wasn't, because I actually think Mikko Rantanen has played pretty good two-way. I feel as though he's been really good defensively. Even before this series, there were times when it was odd man breaks, and all of a sudden you'd see Mikko Rantanen skating into the play, really working hard. I've tried to tell Stars fans he's been presented with 4 different playbooks since January, and that's not easy on anyone. So basically he's had 4 different jobs in 4 different cities. So this is an adjustment. I've said from day one, I think wait until next October and then you'll see if Mikko Rantanen is a good deal or not. But Dallas didn't necessarily have what's called an elite player. They had a lot of good players, Rope Hintz, Jason Robertson. Just you go down the lineup, a lot of really, really good, solid players. Wyatt Johnston, Thomas Harley, Miro Heiskanen, even Jake Ottinger in net. But they've never had like an elite player. You really have to look back probably to Mike Modano as far as an elite player, because there aren't many in the NHL. And I feel as though Mikko Rantanen is that elite player that Dallas needs. So yeah, people wanted more points, but I think the other thing, my friend, that he does that you saw in Colorado is he has done something to the Dallas power play. He opens up space just by being on the ice. You have to respect him in his one-timer. You have to respect his passing ability, and that teams were cheating against the Dallas Stars because they knew where the puck was going on the power play. I don't think I don't think they can cheat anymore, and I don't think that's the case anymore.
Gavin Spittle, my guest, Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast, available wherever fine podcasts are available for download. Also 105.3 The Fan in Dallas tomorrow night, Game 6, Avs and Stars. And it wasn't just Mikko Rantanen, right? It was Wyatt Johnston that got on the board. I mean, you talked about the getting out of the defensive zone. Was that the key for all of the better players on the Dallas Stars? Because it seemed like most of them were lying dormant, and then all of a sudden they all came alive at once.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that certainly led to a lot of breakouts. And when Dallas can utilize their speed, we talk about Colorado speed a lot. The Stars are very effective when they're free to skate and they don't get clogged up. So Pete DeBoer, prior to the last game, said our top six has to show up. And the buttons that Pete DeBoer has pressed, for whatever reason, have all come to fruition. Whether it's playing Casey DeSmith in a game that you thought Jake Ottinger was going to play, or inserting someone into the lineup and them having a big goal, and now calling out the top six forwards. That room really does listen to Pete DeBoer, and it was good to see. And I think there's a lot of veteran experience that he called out. I mean, Matt Duchene hasn't necessarily been great in this series, and he played well the other night. There's a lot of pressure on Mikko Rantanen to perform, and you could hear that crowd erupt. Just felt as though there was a weight lifted off the shoulders. So, yeah, I mean, can they continue? That's the biggest thing. The fact that Dallas was up in the series with only 62 seconds of a lead, to me, is absolutely mind-boggling. I still think Colorado's the better team. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a Colorado radio station. I think the Stars right now, without Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen, it's absolutely amazing that they're up 3-2.
And I was just going to ask you that. I was talking about yesterday on the show. You look at this, like, look, fair play to Dallas. They were the better team in Game 5. But you look at this series in its totality, and from a Colorado perspective, it's like, how are the Avs down in this series? How are they facing elimination? And I guess the reverse of that feeling, or the other side of that feeling, is being felt in Dallas. Like, man, we're quite fortunate to be up 3-2 right now.
I keep reminding our listeners on the podcast that this is happening without Robertson and Heiskanen, just for the simple fact that I think Stars fans forget about that. So yes, they're happy they're up. But would I be surprised if Colorado wins the next two? I wouldn't. Would I be surprised if Dallas wins tomorrow night? I wouldn't. Both teams are very evenly matched, but don't both teams feel like they're taking you on a crazy amusement ride with these games? I mean, it's either going to overtime, it's either super close, or they're blowouts.
Yeah, I know. It's been wild.
When people, my friend, ask me, like, what do you think about Thursday night? I honestly say, I have no idea. And if you do, you really don't. Because, I mean, what has this series shown that you can make a fair prediction what's going to happen tomorrow night? And we all can't. So we'll have to see. If Colorado plays their game, they're going to win. If Dallas plays the game they played the other night, they're going to win. And one of the interesting aspects that I'm looking forward to is getting into that quote-unquote dirty area, the space in front of the net. If Ottinger and Blackwood have clear looks, they've performed extremely well. But when screened, both have let in goals. So which team can be effective in front as far as causing that havoc and creating those screens that shots can get through?
You know, it's fun. I have to chuckle when I hear you talk, Gavin, because you and I could literally, like, just fill in for one another. Like, tomorrow you could just host this show, or like in a couple of nights I could host the pod, because literally everything that you're saying about Dallas, I have said about Colorado. The idea to, because that's one thing that I conceded to Dallas going into the series was Jake Ottinger versus Mackenzie Blackwood. I was like, as well as Mackenzie Blackwood has played, Jake Ottinger is Jake Ottinger. So how do you try to make up that gap, or that perceived gap between the two goaltenders? You get in the dirty areas. And I thought Gabriel Landeskog did a great job of it the other night. It's so funny, and we talk about how evenly matched this series is. It's almost like the same things Pete DeBoer is telling his team, Jared Bednar's now got to tell his team, and vice versa. It just speaks to how evenly matched these two teams are, but also how similar these two teams are.
To the point where we had a Jared Bednar impersonator right behind
him. Who is that guy? Do you know him? Is he a friend of yours?
Actually, so here's the intel.
Okay.
He actually has a scout that goes in, someone goes in, sees what suit that coach is wearing, and then he will change into that suit and change the hairstyle.
But he has a closet full of, and I've watched, every Avs game this year. Jared Bednar's got some combinations. So you're telling me that this guy has all the different Jared Bednar combinations in his closet?
I feel as though he's got a maroon ready to go.
Right?
I really, and let's be honest, Jared Bednar is a sharp-looking man with a sharp-looking suit. So that to me was to a T. But you're absolutely right. And the fans for both sides are into it, and I appreciate that. But they're called fanatics for a reason. And I'm not saying bad things about anybody, but when I have to explain to Stars fans that, when Manson goes around the net and he's tripped up and everyone says Manson dove from a Stars, I'm like, you can say a lot of things about Mr. Manson, who I happen to like. Diving is certainly not one of them. And basically, I explained real quick on my podcast, I want everyone to run around your couch really quick. And you're not going to do it in a square. You're going to cut the corner of your couch. So when you cut the corner, your foot is going to pivot a little bit. Now imagine if you're on a very sharp blade, and then I'm going to take a stick and I'm just going to hit that foot a little bit. Are you going to be able to keep going? No, you're not. So I think it's interesting, and it's probably the fact that fans are complaining about the refs when every call is made means that fans are into the series, and that's really good for hockey.
Well, certainly you could guess some of the conversations that I have had over the last few days, especially regarding Josh Manson, his stick, and Jamie Benn's face.
Yeah. I mean, so the rule is interpreted as be in control of your stick at all times. I felt as though Manson was in control of his stick. That was not good. I completely agree with you. And boy, your listeners are going to love me. I think Rupe Hintz, I think Colorado should have went on a 5-on-3.
When Hintz hit McKinnon?
Yeah, absolutely. But people have to understand things get let go in the playoffs. Maybe they don't see them. But I mean, that was a bad call. And it was at a bad time in the game. And, for the most part, I think the refs have been fine. Heck, as I told someone the other day, at least this isn't Tampa and Florida, where we're wondering, is it a penalty or is it a 3-game suspension?
Unbelievable that what happened with Ekblad. And I love John Cooper. When I covered the Stanley Cup final here, I found John Cooper to just be enchanting. I think the dude is awesome, and I am 100% on his side in this series.
Yeah. I mean, he studied law for a reason. Pete DeBoer is also a lawyer. So, I mean, they know, and they also know that fines could be coming if they criticize the refs.
Yeah.
But, taking a step back, what I've told people is this is a great series with a lot of great players and great storylines. Even when you go down and you look at Yoel Kiviranta, who's had an amazing season for the Avalanche. He was a superstar for his one game amazing performance a few years ago.
Oh, we don't talk about that around here, Gavin. that has been expunged from the record.
No, I understand. And I mean, I bet from an Avalanche perspective, Matt Duchene is beloved here. And we talked about that when you joined me on my podcast. The maturity of Matt Duchene in this town and how much he loves it here and laughing with the press and everything is a different Matt Duchene. Now, the flip side is every single time Valeri Nichushkin takes the ice, we all get frustrated because he fully admitted that he did not give it his all and really didn't try here in Dallas. So all those storylines, plus Landeskog coming back, plus McKinnon and how good he is, plus Wyatt Johnston, and all these storylines to me, and I understand, I want the old format back, my friend.
Yeah.
I do not want to play Colorado in the first round, but I am enjoying this. I really am taking a step back and saying, this has been a great series if you're a hockey fan.
Oh, it's been spectacular. I mean, these whole playoffs have been, even with nonsense officiating-wise, in the Florida-Tampa series. Like, all these series have been absolutely phenomenal, and I can't wait for tomorrow night. Let me ask you, Gavin, on the way out, and I've kept you longer than I promised, and thank you for the time that you're giving me here today. But as you look at Game 6 tomorrow night, as cliche as it is, it to be true as well as I do. No matter how well you've played, Game 6 for both Dallas and Colorado has to be the best game they played this series. What does that look like on Dallas's side? What do they need to unlock? What do they need to hone in on for tomorrow night to be able to win the most difficult game, which is closing out a team?
Okay, I'm going to give them to you really quick. Straight lines. And what that means is Dallas has a tendency to favor the outside. But if they can go straight lines and get in front of Blackwood and attack and screen and cause havoc, they are a different team. Number 2, as I mentioned, break the forecheck of Colorado. That will allow their speed and odd man rushes to take place. Number 3, eliminate penalties. Dallas, when they went on that 8-game losing streak prior to heading into the playoffs, it was all about bad penalties at bad times. You cannot allow that Colorado power play, which I believe finished 9th on the year. You cannot allow them opportunity after opportunity. So they have to stay out of the penalty box. Even though they do have a good penalty kill, just stay out of the box and do not let Colorado cook. And then offensively, they have to, obviously put a lot of pressure. And if you see Dallas shooting from the outside, that's a really good sign for the Colorado Avalanche. But if you see Dallas getting opportunities straight up the middle, specifically with that bumper position on the power play, that means Dallas is hitting on all cylinders.
Just copy what Gavin just said, paste it, and that's my game plan for the Avalanche tomorrow night. Gavin, really appreciate the time. Make sure you check out Gavin's work on the Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast, wherever fine podcasts are given away for free, and also 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Gavin, this was fun, and no matter what happens tomorrow night, enjoy it.
Yeah, thanks, my friend. Hey, Avs fan, see, you got a Dallas guy that's actually okay.
And look how, I don't want to make us sound too important, but I think that you and I, in this budding friendship that we have, could be an example, a light, if we will, if I may, to all Dallas and Colorado people that, look, we can get along even if we want the opposite teams to win. Gavin, appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. Yeah, you bet.
All right, look forward to it.
Yep.
Bye.
Gavin Spittle, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast, joining me here on Drive Time Sports. Yeah, isn't that eerie? Like, seriously. If Dallas, when he's saying if Dallas is shooting from the outside, that's good news for the Avs. What have I been talking about, especially when it comes to the power play? Avs got to get in the dirty areas. And it's one of my core beliefs. We tend to overcomplicate sports, especially a sport like hockey. It is much more difficult to make saves when there is a giant human being standing in front of you, and much easier when there is not. But so many things that apply to Dallas apply to Colorado. And really, this series has been about who does a better job of those things. But my big takeaway right now in this series, and I think it's Gavin's as well, how is Dallas up 3-2? Not to say if you watch the games that they don't, how they've gotten to 3-2. But everything this series was supposed to be. And Gavin and I aren't even talking about Heiskanen or Robertson, because guess what? They're not playing in this series. They're not playing tomorrow night. And yet it's Dallas on the verge of closing out the Avs and not the other way around. Take your thoughts on Game 6, 719 24/7-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome back to the show. The NHL continues to roll out their finalists for their postseason awards. Yesterday, Cale Makar was recognized as one of the 3 finalists for the Norris Trophy, awarded to the best defenseman in the NHL, and that is an award I believe strongly that he is going to win. Today's award that Cale Makar is a finalist for, I do not believe that he is going to win, but it is significant that he is included in the list of the 3 finalists. This is for the Ted Lindsay Award, which is basically the player's MVP. Right? These are the guys that the players think are the best players in the NHL, most valuable players in the NHL. And the list of 3 finalists is Nikita Kucherov of Tampa and Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar of the Avalanche. Now, again, I don't think Cale Makar is going to win because I don't think he's the most valuable player on his team. I think Nathan MacKinnon is the Avs MVP and should be the league MVP this year. But I think it just further shows that, yeah, probably Cale Makar is going to win the Norris Trophy. With all due respect to the Norris Trophy and the Vezina Trophy, the big one is the Hart Trophy, or even to some extent the Ted Lindsay. We don't hold the Ted Lindsay in as high a regard as the Hart Trophy. But my point is, if you are a defenseman or a goaltender that is being mentioned for these kind of awards, Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, then you have been absolutely the best at your position. Because we don't see a lot of defensemen or a lot of goalies get nominated for the Hart Trophy or the Ted Lindsay. And this is a first for Cale Makar. Broke the record held by Mike Green for goals by a defenseman, got 30 this year. But I also think the Mikko Rantanen trade, I can't help but feel like maybe it's added something over the back half of this season to the Avs in terms of how Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar are viewed. You take away Mikko Rantanen and you trade him, and you kind of see, the Avs not. There were times where things got a little turbulent, but for the most part, they were able to maintain their level. And then you go, how much bigger of a piece to the puzzle is Cale Makar? I mean, no one is sitting here saying, oh, Cale Makar, does not play an active role in the success of the Colorado Avalanche. But when you remove a piece like Mikko Rantanen, I think the entire hockey world, and in this case, hockey players across the NHL, go, oh, Cale's an even bigger piece of what they do. You take away Mikko Rantanen and still Cale Makar keeps going and picks up that slack. So a first for Cale Makar being nominated for such an award. He would probably be third. And I do find it interesting too, because I think your natural inclination, if you look at this award as some sort of a precursor to the Hart Trophy, and you see 2 teammates get nominated for the same thing, and you're like, oh, this isn't good. Like, if you think Nathan MacKinnon should win the MVP, you don't want NHL players or writers or anybody to look at Cale Makar as being right there. Not better. No one's saying that Cale Makar is more valuable than Nathan MacKinnon. But if you have a player that is arguably at the same level of value or close to it, then you go, well, they cancel each other out. That player has more help, and I'm going to vote for a guy that has less. The fact that Leon Draisaitl is not even up for the Ted Lindsay, not even a finalist. Is interesting to me. I knew Kucherov would be. I think he's always been on kind of the periphery of the Hart Trophy conversation. I do think, to be fair, I do think he's hurt a little bit by the fact that he plays in Tampa Bay. I know, such a thing is, it's hard to kind of wrap your head around considering how often Colorado and Denver are marginalized in the national perspective. But when it comes to hockey, the Avs are a far more prominent franchise, and Denver is a far more prominent and discussed and followed market in the NHL than Tampa is. So I do think that Nikita Kucherov gets hurt a little bit by that. I think we have to be fair. Now, it's not enough to say that Nikita Kucherov should be the MVP. But I do think that he's hurt a little bit by the market that he plays in. But most of the year, the discussion's been between Leon Draisaitl and Nathan MacKinnon, especially when there was that spell where Connor McDavid was hurt and Leon Draisaitl picked up the slack. And now Leon Draisaitl, in the eyes of the players, was not even one of the 3 most valuable players in the league this year. I mean, that's essentially what they're saying. The writers can feel differently. The people that cover the sport can feel differently. And I would be quite shocked if Cale Makar, Nikita Kucherov, and Nathan MacKinnon are the 3 finalists for the Hart Trophy. But you wonder if Draisaitl in the minds of the players isn't. I could understand a different winner for the Ted Lindsay and the Hart Trophy, but usually those nominees or those finalists kind of mirror one another. So when that email hit my inbox today, I was surprised that the third name was Cale Makar. I mean, good on Cale. Right? And it does speak to how outstanding of a season he had as a defenseman. I don't know that I would have put Cale Makar over Leon Draisaitl. Cale Makar had an amazing year. To put 2 players from the same team and 2 players from the same team that aren't named McDavid and Draisaitl, that's surprising to me. And if I had a ballot, the top 3 on my ballot would be MacKinnon, Draisaitl, and Kucherov. And look, you know how I feel about all these voting things. I don't even, if it were up to me, it would be like the presidential election. Right? Just vote for your MVP. I don't want second place votes, third place votes, fourth place votes. I'm sure there's a practical reason why they do. I would just as soon lose it and just say, who's your MVP? Fill in the blank. My MVP is, write it down. The second place votes, the third place votes. I don't need it. I don't need it. But if I had a ballot and I had to do ranked choice, I guess that's what this is. It would be MacKinnon 1, Draisaitl 2, Kucherov 3. And I hadn't given, if I'm being honest, I hadn't given much thought to who would be 4th. Would it be Cale Makar? I have to think about that one. No, I would probably have Hellebuck. I would probably have Connor Hellebuck 4th. Cale's not going to win the award, but interesting that he was included and does, at least, whether you agree with him being a finalist or not, it does speak to how amazing of a season he was able to put together, even by Cale Makar standards. Now just need him to do some of that tomorrow night. And then if I can be a little bit greedy, Saturday as well. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, the three stories that are driving the show here on Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Wednesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate you listening or watching this show. And boy, are there a lot of ways to do either one of those things. On air, online, through the Extra Sports 1300 app, or on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. The number, if you would like to reach out and converse, give your thoughts, 719-247-1313. And perhaps you would like to comment on one of these stories that we say are driving the show. All right, story number one, Bubble Jamal is back.
Murray, three. Why not? Jamal Murray's got 43 in game number 5. And the Denver Nuggets lead this thing by 20.
Cause on the call, Altitude Sports Radio, as heard right here on Extra Sports 1300. It was indeed a 43-point effort by Jamal Murray as the Denver Nuggets win a pivotal. Have you heard this, that game 5 are pivotal? 131 to 115, and the Nuggets, go figure, have pushed the Clippers to the brink of elimination when their Ball Arena roommates are the ones facing elimination. It just goes to show how wild this first round has been. Nothing has been to expectation. This thing, you've changed your mind about this. I've changed my mind about these series 3 or 4 times. But I did say going into last night's game, that version of Jamal Murray needed to show up. That's what they needed. This is the key not only for this series, but as far as the Nuggets are going to go, it's got to be playoff, at least playoff Jamal, if not bubble Jamal. And it never gets old watching Jamal Murray do what he did last night, does it? And I think I have a theory on why. Because, one, it doesn't happen all the time. But even in the playoffs, he's had 6 40-point games in the playoffs. But also because Jamal Murray continues to be the NBA's biggest paradox. I don't even know if you could call a paradox biggest. Is that a correct adjective? But he is the paradox in the NBA. You get 82 games not every single year, because some years he misses out on time. But the Jamal Murray of the regular season rarely, if ever, has performances like you saw last night. He's had 2 40-plus point games this year. And they happen at the most random times. He had one against Portland and one against Dallas. But that was it. Who he's been for his career during the regular season, you can find that kind of a player on every roster in the NBA. He's an 18 to 20 point a game scorer. It's a good player. You definitely need one of those guys. But there are 37 other guys in the NBA today who have a scoring average better than Jamal Murray for their career. That's not an all-star caliber player, right? But every playoff rolls around and we get games like last night or performances like he had last year against the Lakers, where he is as bona fide a playoff performer as we have in the NBA. And it literally confounds the mind, because if he was just even a little bit more of the guy that we saw last night during the regular season, he'd be an all-star every single year. Every single year. But that's what makes it special. Infuriating at times, but special because he, more than anybody else, and you heard Brian Anderson talk about it on the TNT broadcast last night, no one in the history of the NBA raises his game from a scoring standpoint from the regular season to the playoffs more than Jamal Murray. And we have to look at it both ways. It's because of how great he is in the postseason, and he has been great. But it's also because of how, I'm going to use this word, and I don't know that it's the best word to use, but I'm going to use it anyway, pedestrian, run-of-the-mill. That's probably too harsh. But again, 37 guys in the NBA have a better career scoring average during the regular season than Jamal Murray. But it's what makes nights like last night so amazing to watch. And I love everything about Nikola Jokic's game. I do not get bored with what Nikola Jokic does on a nightly basis, but if you're talking strictly entertainment value, I will take a Jamal Murray game like that last night every day over Nikola Jokic triple-double. Just in terms of entertainment value. Because there are stretches where he just can't miss. And mixed in with those 43 points were massive buckets, right? 2 in the fourth quarter when LA was starting to come back. Jamal Murray would put his foot down. That's what I needed to see from Jamal Murray more than anything. 43 points, awesome, but I needed to see the playoff Jamal Murray that hit shots that changed momentum or perpetuated momentum or boosted up the Denver Nuggets. I suppose that's playoff Jamal, and what we got last night was bubble Jamal. There's nothing like it. And it's because of who he is in the regular season as much as it is who he is in the postseason. But as David Adelman said, Nuggets needed it. And they now push the Clippers to the brink of elimination. Game 6 tomorrow night. Elsewhere in the NBA, here's story number 2.
I'm not the guy that points fingers because in my neighborhood, snitches get stitches. So I don't want to say something, for him to say to get fined or anything. But it's not respectful. I talked with him at the end, and I think we're in a good place.
That is the resolution of just a bizarre ending, perhaps, to Giannis Antetokounmpo's Milwaukee Bucks career. The Bucks had that game in hand. They were up by 7, less than a minute to go, and you blinked, and the Indiana Pacers were bouncing them from the playoffs. And what that clip is in reference to is the fact that Tyrese Halliburton's father stepped fully onto the court. Not even stepped onto the court. He walked onto the court. He was right in the middle of the court, getting in Giannis Antetokounmpo's face. And Giannis could have, and I'm not saying this to be glib, I'm saying it because it is a fact. Giannis could have killed him. And I give Giannis a ton of credit for having restraint in that situation because that is completely unacceptable. The entitlement that Halliburton's father must feel to think he can go onto the court, that's not even acceptable behavior for a parent of a high school kid, let alone a multimillionaire NBA athlete. Tyrese Halliburton's father should not be allowed back to any playoff game the rest of the way. Because if he were just you and me, he would be banned for life. It was utterly ridiculous. But it was a part of an absolutely absurd potential ending to Giannis's career in Milwaukee. Reported today by Shams Charania that Giannis and the Bucks are going to meet soon and discuss the future of both the Bucks franchise and Giannis. And I know the reason I bring this up is not just because it's not every day that the father of an NBA player confronts another NBA player, but there are a lot of people around here who have dreamed dreams of a duo of Nikola Jokic and Giannis Antetokounmpo in Denver. And I look at Giannis to the Nuggets the same way I have looked at Sidney Crosby to the Avs. It makes a lot of sense. I get it. I understand. You know, I think Giannis and Jokic maybe in some ways are kindred spirits. That they're these amazing best player in the world type players and their organizations are collapsing around them. And wouldn't the best way to fix it would just be to join the two of them together? I understand all the reasons why Nuggets fans would love to have Giannis in Denver. If Milwaukee is trying to do anything in the best interest of their organization, allowing them to reset post Giannis, they will not engage with the Denver Nuggets because the Nuggets have nothing to offer. So it's as likely as Sidney Crosby ending up playing with Nathan McKinnon, in my opinion, unless Giannis lets his contract run out in Milwaukee or wherever else he goes and just signs as a free agent at a bargain price. And I don't see that happening either. I'd love to see it as much as anybody. There's just no reasonable way I can talk into the idea that Giannis is going to end up in Denver. And worse yet, he might end up on the Houston Rockets. And that would be another team in the NBA that has risen since the Denver Nuggets last celebrated a title and maybe surpasses them. Well, in terms of record, Houston surpassed the Nuggets this year, but I think that the Nuggets would beat the Rockets in a 7-game series. I don't know if the Nuggets would beat Giannis and the Rockets in a 7-game series, but perhaps somebody keeps them in the Eastern Conference. That would be preferable. But I think that it makes sense that Milwaukee, in the wake of Damian Lillard's Achilles injury, as difficult as it is, trade Giannis and give yourself a fighting chance to have a future that's not 10, 15 years in the future, but maybe 3 or 4, because you get a haul of young players and draft picks back. Because this franchise isn't going anywhere. Hopefully the Nuggets can avoid that fate. Then we move to story number 3, which is Jeff Ulbrich, Atlanta Falcons defensive coordinator, has gotten, or more accurately, his son Jax, which you name your son Jax, he's probably going to run afoul of either the law or the rules. Jax Ulbrich was the person that found Shedeur Sanders' number that was given to NFL teams to contact him during the draft, and he's the one that made the prank call to Shedeur. Jeff Ulbrich, his father, has been fined $100,000 himself, and the Falcons have been fined $250,000 for the prank of Jax Ulbrich. And does the NFL care about, Shedeur Sanders getting pranked? No. I think it's about the security, right? That their information, the information that's being shared around in the NFL is being leaked out, is being found by people who shouldn't have it. That's probably what bothered the NFL. I think most people were bothered by the fact that Shedeur Sanders, in a very trying weekend for him, also had this prank call on top of it. And to be fair, he wasn't the only one. Adam Schefter reporting today, Abdul Carter got a prank call from someone pretending to be an NFL team. See, the Broncos don't take him, and I already forget his name. Tyler Warren reportedly as well. Like, what's going on? We haven't heard a lot of this, and this year it's like an epidemic. But obviously, this continues the Shedeur Sanders story. And what I wonder about this moving forward, talked about the viability of Shedeur Sanders as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. And I think it's entirely possible that he wins that gig. But I was wondering this as he continued to fall. There were a lot of people on social media that were celebrating it, that were dunking on him, making fun of him, and it's not great behavior, but I'm also not going to sit here and say that Shedeur Sanders is the first person to be subject to this kind of behavior on social media. I'm not talking about the prank call anymore. I'm talking about people on social media celebrating Shedeur falling. And I was wondering this, where's the Malcolm Gladwell tipping point where Shedeur Sanders goes from being a villain in this story to the hero? Or when does he become a sympathetic figure? Is pick 144 late enough for people to turn around and start rooting for Shedeur Sanders? And I started to see it a little bit. I started to see and feel sentiment shift. Like, my gosh, I thought that Shedeur Sanders was completely overrated, and I think he is too full of himself. But my goodness, I did not think that he deserved to fall to pick 144. I'll be curious to see this Shedeur Sanders story continue into the NFL. Not just how Shedeur handles this, which is probably the most important thing. What's he going to do with this? But are the same people that were creating memes and celebrating Shedeur's fall going to maybe in some way celebrate if he succeeds? And I think have to wait. Saw a little bit of that during the draft, but I think to really get a sense of it, I think you're going to have to wait till the preseason and training camp and just kind of see, as he's in the news more, whether people are pulling for him. And I think, and one last thing before I break, I think one begats the other. I think if Shedeur Sanders, and he's already shown some signs of this on his conference calls with Cleveland media, but if he shows up and there's fewer cameras around him, if there's a little bit less of the talk about changing the culture of the Cleveland Browns and a little bit less of this other stuff that turned people off of Shedeur, then I do think that public sentiment can turn in his favor a little bit. I mean, it's not to say that he's hurting for fans. He already has the third highest selling jersey of any rookie in the NFL. Only Cam Ward and Travis Hunter have sold more jerseys than Shedeur. But while only a few players in this class have more fans, apparently, than Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward and Travis Hunter don't have near the number of haters that Shedeur does. And I understand that he has done some of this stuff to himself. And his father has done more in that regard. But with the prank call and falling in the draft, I wonder if Shedeur becomes one of the feel-good stories of the upcoming NFL season. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show. More Drive Time Sports coming up next. Busy week for Switchbacks FC. They host Phoenix Rising on Saturday, and then they turn around on Tuesday to make a bit of history, because for the first time in the history of Widener Field, an MLS club will be visiting as New York Red Bulls comes to town to take on the Switchbacks in the round of 32 of the U.S. Open Cup. And if you would like to be a part of history at 7:30 on Tuesday night, be the 13th texter to text Switchbacks and your name to 719-247. 1313, that's Switchbacks and your name. And the 13th texter will win a pair of tickets to see the Switchbacks host New York Red Bulls on Tuesday night. Nuggets, with their best performance by far, albeit it's only been a handful of games, 131-115 is the final. And look, who the Nuggets are is never going to change. They're not all of a sudden going to become the San Antonio Spurs when it comes to defense. They just don't have the capacity, I think, to be a lockdown defensive team over the course of 4 quarters. But they do have the ability to buckle down in key moments. And that was part of the story last night in that 4th quarter when LA started to make their comeback. The Nuggets were able to make some defensive plays. And yes, it led to more big Jamal Murray buckets. And Aaron Gordon 3 was essentially the dagger, because after that, Ty Lue put in his bench. And I think the question going into tomorrow night is, what about Game 5 can you bank on? Because they're not going to get all of it. Everything that happened last night is not going to happen again. So what can you bank on, and will ultimately that be enough? I think you can certainly count on Nikola Jokic having a similar game, maybe even a better game. But there's only one basketball. If Nikola Jokic's scoring numbers go up a little bit, which I think is reasonable to think they will come at the expense of somebody else. The one thing that I look at from last night and say, yeah, that's probably not going to happen tomorrow night, Russell Westbrook. Now, doesn't mean he can't make a positive impact on the game, but, I mean, the guy had 21 points last night. He was hitting threes all over the place. I can tell you with some level of certainty that Russell Westbrook will not be in LA tomorrow night. Could it be good, Russ? Possibly. But not that Russell Westbrook. But I think the defense that the Nuggets were able to play in that 4th quarter, I think they can do that on a regular basis. Not for 4 quarters, but in moments late in the game when they have to. Because that's what they were able to do a couple of years ago. And weren't great for 4 quarters defensively. But when they needed a stop, they could get a stop. And one of the lesser talked about storylines last night was what Christian Brown did against James Harden. But there's, 2 sides to that story. I did think that Christian Brown played very good defense against James Harden. But as this series goes on, we know what James Harden's reputation is. So it's always hard sometimes. And look, the Clippers side of things, they're doing the same thing. right? They're going to definitely say it was James Harden fading. They're not going to give credit to Christian Brown. I even saw some tweets like Kawhi can't do it by himself. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I mean, that's true, but also you are still the deeper team. So there's always the two sides. When it's Christian Brown, I did see Christian Brown play really good defense on James Harden. But the thing about it is when James Harden is on his game, that doesn't matter. But this series, the stakes are getting higher. It's getting later. That's usually when, right on cue, James Harden starts to fade into the background. But the defense was there when it needed to be. It wasn't there. I think that's probably the way I would put it. The Nuggets defense can be there when it needs to be. It's not going to be omnipresent. They are an offensively minded team. The best parts about them are on the offensive end of the floor. And they're always going to be that. They're never going to change. But if they can just buckle down in those key moments, they got a shot to win more than just the 3 games that they've won so far in these playoffs. But they can't take Game 7 for granted. You got to learn from your past mistakes. I think they took the fact that they had Game 7 at home for granted last year against Minnesota, and we all know how that turned out. And I've been talking about this with the Avalanche. At some point, the Avs will need to, put a team away. They'll have to win a game where you would say they're not the more desperate team. And that opportunity was the same opportunity that was there for the Denver Nuggets. Right? Game 5 of a 2-2 series. I don't even know that it would apply. I guess you would look at Game 2 for the Colorado Avalanche as that. Right? You had a chance to really impose yourself on the series, take control of it, and you didn't finish the job. And now it's kind of coming back to bite you. Denver Nuggets have that kind of an opportunity tomorrow night in Game 6. Do they have to win Game 6? No. They're not the team facing elimination. But it would, as if the Nuggets are accessing some next level over the last couple of games, and that's sure what it feels like, then I think the next step in that is to just finish off LA. Don't even mess with the Game 7. I think it would send a real clear message across the league that maybe you buried us a little bit too soon. Tomorrow night's going to be interesting. And then again, there's one bad thing about tomorrow night. They're playing at the same time again. And guess what? If the Avs win and the Nuggets lose, they might play at the same time on Saturday. So same question as I asked the last time. Which one are you watching? Where's most of your focus going to be? I think it has to be on the Avs game, right? That could be it for Colorado. I think it would be the Avs. And that is why that is the game that you will hear on this station tomorrow night. I think the circumstances warrant for the Avs to be the higher profile game tomorrow night, but this shouldn't be happening. This is the second time in this series, and who knows what the schedule is going to be like for Saturday, because one thing about these playoffs in both the NBA and the NHL, they are completely nuts and they are completely awesome. We could have a day chock full of game sevens. And we might see, could you imagine? It was difficult enough the first time. Tomorrow night, going to be difficult again, but I do think that there is a game that is more worth tuning into, if all, with everything else being equal. If you love the Nuggets more than you love the Avalanche, or like basketball more than you like hockey, then obviously that makes your decision for you. But if you're even, I think that the Avs are the game you watch. But then what do you do for a game 7? That can't happen. As much as none of this can happen, it can't happen. That really can't happen. They really can't. I don't know who has to talk to who. You cannot have the Avs and the Nuggets playing game 7 at the same time. That's awful. But we don't know. We just found out last night what time the Avs and the Nuggets would play tomorrow. Got to see how these other series shake out. Decision a little bit easier tomorrow night, I think, than if both of these teams go to game 7, but not fair. Not fair at all. 719-24-7-1313 back after this. Congrats to Justin, who won the pair of tickets to see the Switchbacks host New York Red Bulls on Tuesday night for the U.S. Open Cup. More chances for you to win tomorrow and Friday, so be listening for that. This text coming in earlier, really enjoyed that interview with Gavin. Gavin Spittle, if you missed it, is the host of Spits and Suds Hockey Podcast, which covers the Dallas Stars. He also works on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, and I appreciate it. Gavin's great, and we had a conversation a few days ago on his podcast, and I like the conversation between he and I on his platform so much. I wanted Gavin to join me here, and perhaps we'll link up again if this series goes to a game 7. The texter continues, glad you guys talked about Bednar's mini-me. I was curious about him too. Yeah, this stuff, I'll just be completely honest. I was not going to ask him about the Jared Bednar impersonator. I wasn't. I haven't talked about the bang on the glass guy who apparently is in jail. I'm not going to discuss the how should I put this? The most compelling shot of Pete DeBoer on the Dallas Stars bench. That was last year, if you remember. Just not something that, I mean, in the moment, while I'm watching, I'm like, that dude's got the gray wig on and he's got the exact same suit. That's weird. And then it goes, and then I'm worried about the power play. Because I'm a nerd. Like, I get it. Like, I know why that is. But it's becoming big news. Matt Duchene was asked about it. Matt Duchene said, I was dying. I mean, Bedsy's a well-dressed guy, young guy, good hair. I saw the guy, and I couldn't believe he got the suit color right. That's what blew my mind. I said to my wife, how does this guy know? And she said, well, maybe he just wears the same suit every game. And I'm like, no, he had a burgundy one on in Denver. And the piece of intel that Gavin shared when he joined me last hour was that he has a spy. And this spy, it's not a scout, it's a spy because it's the Dallas Stars and they're the enemy. So it's a spy. They have a spy that will tell this dude, whoever he is, what suit Jared Bednar is wearing. And then he will pick it out of his closet because he has every Jared Bednar combination of suit in a wear. I love this job that I have. And I love being a dad. I am devoted to my children. I am not as serious about anything in my life or more dedicated to anything in my life than that dude is to match Jared Bednar. I thought I was a good dad, and I don't have a high opinion of myself as a media personality, but I love what I do and I work really hard at what I do. I don't work as hard as that dude works just to look kind of like Jared Bednar. Because what I focus on, the dude in his face doesn't look like Jared Bednar. Am I crazy? And Jared Bednar doesn't have completely gray hair, and this dude just, but the dedication to the suit game, it makes up for everything. But nobody is saying that he looks exactly like Jared Bednar, right? Like, if he wore a different colored suit, you would be like, what is that dude doing? Why is he dressed that way at a hockey game? That's really the key here. You don't look that much like Jared Bednar, but when he matches the suit, I mean, good on him. Good on him. Again, I'm not as dedicated to anything in my life than that dude is to impersonating Jared Bednar. But also, like, too, could this be another sales point for hockey? You know, the NBA has their celebrities, right? That's what the NBA has. Ooh, look at all the celebrities. Is one of them Jessica Alba? No, then I don't care. But they show the celebrities all the time, and that's their thing. In fact, Kevin Hart, who has quickly become one of my least favorite people in the entertainment industry, given his performance at the All-Star game, was courtside for the game last night. No, game 4. I'm sorry. He was in LA. Days run into each other, whether the game's in LA, Denver, Dallas, I can't keep track. Kevin Hart was at the Intuit Dome. But you know what tops that? The fact that hockey games will have regular, everyday citizens. Because think about this, too. I don't know what these people do for a living. They're probably not multimillionaire entertainers, but yet they spend their hard-earned money to sit right behind the bench, and they dress up like the opposing coach. They dress up in full-body leotards that are neon green. They are certainly more engaged in the game than some of these celebrities, right? The guy that in Dallas that kept pounding on the glass. And I gotta say the woman that sat next to Pete DeBoer, sat behind Pete DeBoer a lot during last year's series, I would probably put right on level of some celebrities, but it's just everyday people, man. Everyday people that are doing this. I salute them. Although, I haven't seen a lot of those type of fans, and I know Avalanche fans are as dedicated as they come, but what's the shtick? Are there any Avs fans with some shtick that might... Can somebody... I wouldn't imagine it'd be too difficult to look like Pete DeBoer. It would take some real dedication, right? If you want to, go method actor and be like Demi Moore and G.I. Jane, like, zzz. Pete DeBoer has some pretty good suits, too. Need that tomorrow night. That's really the key for tomorrow night's game is the Avs got to have some weird fan with some kind of shtick that when it shows one of the two head coaches, you're like, what's going on there? But it's become big news. Big news down in Dallas. I like Matt Duchene. Like, I'm trying to parse my words as well. When talking about one of those Stars fans who have sat behind, it was the Dallas Stars bench a couple years ago. Matt Duchene says in this article, there's been a lot of viral moments in this building with people behind the glass. A certain situation a few years ago behind our Stars bench that everybody was paying attention to. and was a female fan. And then he continues, there's the other guy that I guess I've heard he's not in society anymore. What a great way to say that somebody's in prison. Not in society anymore. Hey, you hear from Tom lately? No, he's not in society anymore. Although I'm not in prison and people say that about me, then I'm not in society. I'm on the fringes of society. Guess we'll leave it there today. Man, we got a lot to talk about tomorrow, don't we? Game 6 is Avs trying to keep their season alive, Nuggets trying to advance and get things going with the Oklahoma City Thunder. We'll talk a lot about both. We'll try to split our time evenly. We got 3 hours to do it. I think we'll get it done. As far as today goes, appreciate your patronage, the interaction, and my thanks to Gavin Spittle. Again, check out his podcast if you want more Dallas insider perspective on this series. Spits and Suds Hockey Pod. Gavin Spittle does a great job on that show. Bria Quintana as well from Denver Rush, joining me in hour number 1. That'll do it tonight. You got a smorgasbord of sports, and none of them are Avs or Nuggets, so choose wisely, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.